Welcome everyone for Shir Sefer Yehoshua. The way we will try to learn Sefer Yehoshua will be first, who was Yehoshua? So we start the day with a small introduction to Sefer Yehoshua, and we will try to learn also about a little bit of geography as we get into Gvulei Sa'aretz. So let's start with and why it's important geography. Who was Yehoshua? Why Sefer Yehoshua? And what's so important in Sefer Yehoshua? There's a Gemara in Nedorim. Gemara in Nedorim Daf Chobeis, and it says, Omar Rav Ade bar Rav Chanina, Ilmolei Chotu Yisrael. לא ניתן להם אלו 5 חום של תורה וספר יהושע בלבד. מפני why שערכו של ארץ ישראל. That means if כלל ישראל would not sin, we don't need not the נביאים ראשונים, not the נביאים אחרונים. We call today נביאים ראשונים, we call the נביאים ראשונים, we call, as we said, שמואל, מלוכים. הנביאים אחרונים we call ישעיה, יחזקאל. Really, על פי חז"ל, נביאים אחרונים are only חגי, זכריה ומלאכי, as Rashi says. They are the נביאים אחרונים, they were in the תקופת בי שני. Just before בי שני, נביאים אחרונים, חגי, זכריה ומלאכי. מפי נביאים. In the Nevim Rishonim, we have all Nusar. Tell Klal Yisrael to come and do tshuva. We didn't need it. But Sefer Yehoshua is part of the Torah in certain ways, and we know the last 8 psukim of Sefer Devarim was written by Yehoshua. Lefi one of the shittas in the Gemara was written by Yehoshua, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu writes it, Moshe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Moshe Kosev Bedema, or as Yehoshua bin Nun himself, Yehoshua and the Chamish Chum Torah, as we see the Gemara in the Nedorim, and also we see from the Lashon of the text itself from Sefer Yehoshua is very similar to the text of the Torah more than other Nevim. There's many Nevim as we find in Yirmiyahu, Yeshayahu, or even Yechezkel, right? Va'ani oimed anal kvar. They all speak about themselves. Va'ani. Even the Sefer Yirmiyahu starts with Divrei Yirmiyahu Asher ba'anoso is Chazon Yeshayahu ben Omoit Asher Chazah. They start in the beginning as a third party, right? Group Shlishi, but then they actually speak about V'Hashem Asher Nireila. Sefer Yehoshua is more like the Torah. Wherever we open up, we see Vayomer Hashem el Yehoshua. Vayomer Hashem el Yehoshua is much more similar to the words of the Torah. We're going to have to understand why, and we're going to see we can medayek in the words of Sefer Yehoshua a little bit more than we medayek in the rest of the words. So what is Erko Shel Eretz Yisrael? What's so important about Erko Shel Eretz Yisrael that we would come and have anyway Sefer Yehoshua, wherever it is? So Sefer Eretz Yisrael, the Or, Sefer Or, one of the earliest Rishonim, Rabbeinu Nosson ber Rabbi Yechiel Ish Roimi, Or, he comes and he brings, Azoy Pirush, he says, Erko, what's Erko? Erech, what's Erech? He says, Chelko shel kol shevet v'shevet. Every shevet and shevet, I like to know every chel, what is it? That's why this is part of the Torah. It means the Torah tells us, and Parnasei, many do the psukim, we can see the Gvulei Sa'aretz, and there's many places in Parnas Mishpatim and Masei, many places in the Torah that the Torah tells us about the Gvulei Sa'aretz. We wouldn't know what is the Gvulei Sa'aretz of which shevet was where, and where they sat, and where they occupied, and we're not, and so we have to know this. This is part of the Torah, and that's why this is Erko Shel Eretz Yisrael is very similar. Sefer Yehoshua is very important. We could come and say about Yehoshua. So who was Yehoshua bin Nun? I would like to start with the story that I saw. It's a very interesting medrash. The medrash is not brought down as a medrash. It's a medrash that's brought down in the Sefer B'Shem. I saw it in the Sefer Rav Peolim. Rav Peolim B'Shem Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam. Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam. Not the Rav Peolim of the, as we know, the Ben Ish Chai. Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam. He brings a medrash. He brings in a medrash that when Yehoshua bin Nun was born, so his mother, I'm going to read it from inside, he says, Azoy, V'chein kosav agoin ha-mekubal aloiki, moireinu harav nosen neta shemotzo b'shem medrash. Brings a medrash. Now, he doesn't bring this medrash because we can see it's a very interesting medrash that I tried to, which medrash doesn't, it's not such a medrash. He found why Yehoshua, because Yehoshua bin Nun. The Meraglim call him, as we know, the Gemara says, Reish Ketiyah. As you see also later. He says like this, Oviv shel Yehoshua, dor b'Yerushalayim. The father of Yehoshua bin Nun lived in Yerushalayim. Ve'ishto Yakora. She couldn't have any children, the wife of Yehoshua bin Nun. And he would come and daven, lenoichach ishto ki Yakoroi, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu listened to his davening. And since she became pregnant, he would come and cry, he would cry and cry. And the wife, Yeshua's wife, was very upset about it. Nun's wife was very upset about this. Why? He's crying all the time. And she asked him, why are you crying? And then he became convinced, and he tells her, I'm going to tell you what. They told me from Shamayim that this child is going to be born. He will come and behead me. He's going to come and chop off my head. And she believed, because she knew wherever he says he's a tzaddik, wherever he says it's MS. And straight away, when this child was born, she takes over there like a small teva, a small box, choimer and zephes, like we did Moshe Rabbeinu, similar, that's a shtei doten, and she puts him over there on the ye'or. And brings over that because Vayeman Hashem da Godel Livloya is not Yoina, and he got swallowed by a fish. He got swallowed by a fish. And one day the king does a big party for all of the servants and everyone, and he does it there for the huge fish. They open up the fish and they find inside this box. They open the box and there's a baby inside. And they bring her the kids, so they take care of the child, and that's the way you go. One day the father of Yehoshua, Nun, he owes a lot of tax to the king of Mitzrayim. He doesn't pay it, and then Yehoshua, he grew up by the he becomes a Talkois. He becomes like one of the and he does the Sarat Bochim. You be the one to go and to kill this person. Nun. He doesn't know it's his father, and he kills him. Then the mother and they found out who she is. As I don't know the Maise, again, the Maise is a medrash that we know about. This medrash is with Yeshua, I saw from Rabbi Tzok Yishaya Weiss. He brings over there a big ma'amar about this. This is not true, and he brings a lot. As whoever read the Ksuvas and Yerushalmi Ksuvas Sifrei Hamiros knows it comes there, right? And we know about people that very similar stories. So many stories that they try to bring and they took from the Greek mythology many times. So this is a story where Yehoshua ben Nun comes from, where he was born. Again, this medrash is not exactly a medrash, but it's a very interesting medrash. Nun is a fish, yeah. Nun. Rav Hamnuna, as we know, is a fish. Actually, why he's called Yehoshua ben Nun? There's a very famous Soscho brings it, the Choizim Lublin, that from Sorai, that they took the two Yud that has of the Yehoshua has a Shvo, with two pintalach. Where are they going to get it from? The two pintalach. So Ben is with the second. It has three pintalach. So the 3 dots, they take 2 dots from the Ben, take it to the Yud from Yehoshua, and the Sorai, the Yud from Sorai, they gave Yehoshua. Now Sorai doesn't have any Nekudas under the Yud. Yehoshua has a Shavo. It's 2 pintalach. Where do they go these two? Where do they go these 2 dots? Ben. Well, in the Torah, it's a little bit schwer this word because steht in the Torah Yishaya bin Nun, and then he was still called Hoya without the Yud. Well, anyway, the state in I think also speaks about as a word in Shlo where he says this word. Nun is really called bin noin. Also is mashma in divrei yomim bin noin. Why is it called bin noin? So the Ramban explains bin noin because he's a novoin. He was the son of the novoin. Who's the novoin? Moshe Rabbeinu. He was the hemshech of Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, when we're going to follow Sefer Yehoshua, I would like to look at this way as we find. I will start with the Maise. The Maise, the Moshe Bloi, he was the head of Agudas Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. Great uncle, I could say. And he was Mamish Yad Yamin of Reb Chaim Sonnenfeld. And when Reb Chaim Sonnenfeld became not well, and they was looking for someone to replace him, Reb Chaim Sonnenfeld, looking, they couldn't find anyone. Reb Chaim Sonnenfeld, no one could replace him with Reb Chaim Sonnenfeld. The Moshe Bloi writes in his Zechoinus, he writes over there that one day I went up to Moshe Bloi says, I went up to Reb Chaim Sonnenfeld. What we will do when, the Rav doesn't live for big, he don't live for always. One day, 120, and so he says, listen, and what's going to be? The Haredis, the soil, everything that you're involved and you built, and what's going to be the Chinuch HaTorah, with all of these things. So Rabbi Zechariah told them when Moshe Rabbeinu came and passed away from the world, they said, "What's going to? There's nothing to do anymore. That's it." So Klal Yisrael, Yehoshua ben Nun came, and he was Mamish Moshe Rabbeinu, and you see Klal Yisrael's story. Do you see Yehoshua? And you see through the psukim, we're trying to figure out Klal Yisrael actually struggled with this. They had Moshe Rabbeinu, but he was everything. He was Torah, he was Tefillah. Everything was Moshe Rabbeinu. He spoke to the Shiurim, was in Melachim, Rabbeinu, that was believing in anything else. And that's why we see. Why? Because the Chamo is the sun, the Levana is the moon. The moon doesn't get this light from his own. The moon, everything what he gets is the light that the moon is only from the sun. Yehoshua ben Nun didn't have anything from himself. He is in the Shoris Moshe. So they were very, very upset. And we see Ochon. Ochon comes and he says, 1 second, Shevet Yehuda, they have to be the kings. Why Yehoshua? Yehoshua from Shevet Ephraim. Why Yehoshua is taking to be the manning? He's the leader. And we're going to find all time this conflict through Sefer Yehoshua and Bechlal, through Nach. This conflict, let's understand where the people are coming from, and let's see the people as they relate to Yehoshua ben Nun. Is the Hanog of Yehoshua ben Nun, and that is Sefer Yehoshua has the first part is starting with giving the Hanog from Moshe Rabbeinu to Yehoshua ben Nun. Eretz Yisrael what we can see Erko Shel Eretz Yisrael, and that's so important about Sefer Yehoshua, is when they came to the Avtocha HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shmi Hashem lo noidat Elohem, and when will be the noidat Elohem? With the Avtocha. What is the Avtocha? What is the promise? That they're going to go into Eretz Yisrael? That's the promise. Now they're coming to the, we find 4 different times HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Torah promises them, right? And we find in Sefer Bereshit, the Parshas Ben Absorim, and the Parsha Ben Absorim. The second time in Sefer Shmois and Parshas Mishpatim. The third time we find also Avtocha again, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give us the land in Parshas Masei, exactly the Gvulei Soretz. That's more in details. And we find also in the 4th time in Parshas Eikev, in Sefer Devarim, in Parshas Eikev. And this double and triple and again what HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes as Yehoshua Binu, we find in the Sefer, and that's the first part, as we know, V'oirish Hashem Kol Hagoyim Oile. When is this? V'oirish Hashem es Kol Hagoyim Oile Milifneichem Kol Hamokim Asher Tidrich Kaf Raglechem. This is Sefer Yehoshua. This is now in the times of Yehoshua when they're going to come and going to be. The second thing what we find in Sefer Yehoshua is let's start with the name of Rav Ade Bar Chanina. Lefi this pshat. If not, we would come and Ilmole Yisrael Chotu. We wouldn't write only Sefer Yehoshua. Why? Because all of the Avtochas, what we have in the Torah, the 4 times that we have the Avtocha, the promise in the Torah for the going into Eretz Yisrael is Sefer Yehoshua, and that's why we find this also many times in Sefer Yehoshua itself. We find the Psukim, right, as we find later on in the Perik Yud Aleph. We find Perik Yud Aleph, the Psukim over there, and Pasuk Tezvor. Kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe Avdoi, kein tziva Moshe es Yehoshua, v'chein also Yehoshua lo yesid do mikol asher tziva Hashem es Moshe. Later on also, in Perik Chof Aleph, we find also, Vayiten Hashem leYisrael, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to Israel, es kol ha'oret asher nishba lo seis le'avoisom. This is, all of this is a hemshech what happened in the times of Yehoshua. It's a hemshech what happened actually in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, and it's a hemshech, and this what is the hemshech what we spoke about. Moshe Rabbeinu, as we said, the hemshech of Moshe Rabbeinu is Yehoshua. The Gemara will come and says, and it's a medrash in Bereshis Rabbi and Parshas Noach, v'zorach hashemesh ubo hashemesh ad shelo yishoka shimshoi shel Moshe zorach shimshoi shel hizriach shimshoi shel Yehoshua. The pasuk comes and tells us v'zorach hashemesh. There's no hefsek to leadership in Klal Yisrael. The leadership in Klal Yisrael goes from Moshe. He didn't leave empty hollowed space. He just went and to Yehoshua, and it goes kol yemei Yehoshua, as we know. Also, loichotu, all of the Nevi'im Achronim, what we call Nevi'im Achronim, or Nevi'im that they give Musar, is not in the times of Yehoshua. Why? Because as Rashi tells us in the end of also Rashi and Nach, and also Rashi in the end of Parshas V'zoi Sabocha, that the Avtocha what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Achrei Moisi, right? And Moshe Rabbeinu says, I know that what's going to happen. Ashris Tashchisun. It was not in the times of Yehoshua Binu. In the times of Yehoshua Binu, they didn't know. There was no chet. Kimat. As you can see, there was Eiver Hayarden a little bit. They go the Bnei Reuven, and they came in the Eiver Hayarden. Why Yehoshua Binu was Zoiche more than anyone else? More than anyone else. We know Moshe Rabbeinu comes and says, "If Elokei Ruchois Chol Basar," he wants his children should come and they mamshich to be the leaders of Klal Yisrael. Why Yehoshua Binu is Zoiche more than anyone else? Chazal teach us, and it's a medrash Rabbi in Parshas Pinchos. Chazal teach us Hazai. Omar Moshe. I want to come and say that's what after you saw the story of Bnei Tzlofot and his daughters, they get the thing. Bedinu sheyushu b'ni, also my son Bonai Eskvoidi. Omar LaKadosh Baruch Hu noitzer teino yoichal piryo. Bonecho yoshev lohem v'lo yosku b'Torah. Yehoshua hirbo sheros v'hirbo chilek lecho, and he gave you covenant, and he gave you, he was mechu or your mashki or mari. Yehoshua, the Gemara Basra tells us Yehoshua kosaf sifroi. Yehoshua wrote the sifroi, and lefi some sheet is also the last 8 psukim in the Torah. This sefer is many. The Abarbanel, when he comes and he brings the Akdoma to Sefer Yehoshua, he brings it as 16 different parts. 16 chalokim he divides the Sefer Yehoshua. But it's mainly we have the beginning, Klal Yisrael going into Eretz Yisrael. Then we have Kibush Oretz. Then we have the Kibush Oretz is all the wars what they have. And then we have the Chalukah dividing the land into 12 Shvatim. And then also dividing the Ori Miklo, the Ori Levim. And then Yehoshua, before he dies, before the Ptir of Yehoshua, the priest in Shechem, what he does with the whole of Klal Yisrael. And when we look at every part of the Sefer of Yehoshua, of these parts of, we said Kibush Oretz, Melchemes Oretz, all of these parts, we see without this part there's no value for Eretz Yisrael. That means that's the Erko Shel Eretz Yisrael. This is the Erko Shel Eretz Yisrael. Yehoshua ben Nun is one of the Mem Ches Nevim, as we know, and that's why Yehoshua ben Nun many takonas is the takonas, as we know, from the Gemara, but we come with the pay base. The Gemara says he was metaken. Some say Oleinu l'Shabeach, right? Some say even Alkein Nekavelecho, or Ochon was metaken Alkein Nekavelecho. Depends on the Pirush HaRokeach, the Sidur Yavetz. Depends there over the Machloikis about this. Who was metaken exactly Oleinu l'Shabeach or Alkein Nekavelecho. When we talk about, let's talk about the Nevim. So in Nevim, we know there's a little bit of a stira, between the Kedushas Nevim. We study now Nevim, so we have Torah, Nevim, and we have Ksuvim. There's a bit of a stira in the Ran. We start with the Mogen Avrom. The Mogen Avrom is Simen Kuf Nun Gimel. Affect the stira in the Ran. Mitzad Echad, the Ran says in Maseches Rosh Hashanah that the Psukim that state in Ksuvim, right, the Rosh Hashanah and Davening, state before the Psukim of the Nevim. Why? Because Malin Bakodesh Vein Moiridin. What's more important? Nevim is greater than the Ksuvim, and that we start with Divrei. Nevim because of Leimoil comes before we have Torah, Nevim and Ksuvim. So Torah definitely is more Kodesh because in Torah itself is definitely Mipi Hashem, Mipi Agvur, and Moshe Rabbeinu. Now there is a very, very controversial Abarbanel, what the Malbim is very sharp against this Abarbanel. What the Abarbanel says that Nevim were told certain things in Ben Mara Nevuah, and every Navi came and said it in his own language. So he had the Mara Nevuah, and then he rewrote what he understood, and he says that's why Yirmiyahu, there's many Kri and Ksiv. That's what Abarbanel says. Much more than Yeshayahu. Why? Because Yirmiyahu came from a poor family, Asher Ba'anosis, from Mishpachas Koyanim. He didn't have a very, very high vocabulary. And Yeshayahu, who came from a prestige family, we know Yeshayahu ben Omoitz, and the Gemara says in Megillah, Omoitz ve'Amatzio were brothers. Amatz is a melech, Amatzio, king of Yehuda. So he came from a very aristocratic family. And the Malbim says, say that Yeshayahu and Yirmiyahu, they met the am I sure that the Nevuah name is Ruach HaKodesh? That's what the Malbim says today. Also, but that's Barbanel. Let's understand the Nevim. What is the Nevim against the Ksuvim? So the Ran comes and says, from in Kufnun Gimel Frek the Stin, Rosh Hashanah we say the Psukim of the Ksuvim after the Psukim of Nevim because Mali Bakodesh very reading. The Ran in Megillah, the Ran says in Perek Bnei Yair, in the end of Megillah, the last Perek in Megillah, the Ran comes and says a little bit different that you put on the Ksuvim al Gabi Nevim. Why? Nevim al Gabi Ksuvim. Why? Says the Ran, Harei Kedushasam Shava. So when you look at Nevim and Ksuvim, it's the same Kedusha. And that's why when you come and put Nevim and Ksuvim, you can put whoever you want to put. So Nevim and Ksuvim, as if like the Mogen Avrom. So there's a few terutzim. One of the terutzim is from Rabbi Yitzchok Hutner and Pachad Yitzchok on Maimer on Shavuos. He says a very interesting thing. He says, and what's going to get a little bit to us to understand what is the Nevim and what's the difference between the Nevim to Ksuvim. He says, in Divrei Nevim, we look at Divrei Nevim, so the Divrei Nevim, the Kedusha is higher than what says in the Navi. Because what the Navi wrote down has a less of a Kedusha what the Navi says. So the Divrei Navi is what the Kedusha promised. That's the Nevuah, that's the Nevuah itself, and that is considered a hemshech, as a continuation from the Nevuah, what the Kedusha gave Moshe Rabbeinu, and he said, right, Komoini. What's the pasuk Komoini? What's Komoini? That every Navi has a chelik of Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's a hemshech. The Nevuah started from the Moshe Rabbeinu, he's Av Lechol HaNevim, and everyone else is a hemshech of Moshe Rabbeinu, and it's Komoini, it has a part of Moshe Rabbeinu. Divrei Ksuvim has a Kedusha, right? It has a Kedusha, but Nevim is greater than Divrei Nevim. And that's why when you read out the Psukim, so the Divrei Nevim, you read it out, so then what? Nevim is greater than Ksuvim. But when you come and you say, when they're both written down, you have a Sefer of Nevim and a Sefer of Ksuvim, so they're both the same. They're both the same, so it's not going to be any different. There's another very, very similar teretz to this, Reb Chaim Brisker brings out a few shaylas, but you say Reb Chaim Brisker brings an interesting teretz. He says also, what's the chiluk between Nevim and Ksuvim? He says, these are Nitnu Lei Omer and these are Nitnu Lei Kosev. That's a difference. He doesn't speak about the Kedusha. He speaks about just to understand what's the difference between them. Nitnu Lei Omer, that means the Divrei HaNevim, Nitnu Lei Omer, they were told to say, writer, to the people, to tell the people. And that's Nitnu Lei Kosev. What's Nitnu Lei Kosev? Just being written down. Now, if you use the Pachadit, so we understand that Nitnu Lei Omer, and that's why the Divrei HaNevim, they were said that they are higher Kedusha, but the Divrei HaKsuvim, they are not written, he's told. They are there to come and to be, not only to be told, to be actually written down. So before we go in, let's start the Psukim inside. Before we start the Psukim inside, let's understand what year we're talking about, and what year we're talking about over here, and also where exactly we're standing in this Klal Yisrael. So we always know the very interesting and easy And Emet Hashem, I hope next week maybe as we could follow a timeline, so we could print out maybe a timeline just for Sefer Yehoshua to see where we holding in the timeline. But we know we are on Beis Alofim Tov Peiches. Beis Alofim Tov Peiches. It's very easy to remember. As always, we start from Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was born 1948. 1948. Yeah, Avraham Avinu was born. Now from there we always could start. He was 100 years old. Yitzchak. And from later 400 years to Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we know it's 500 years from right. Aleph Alofim 19. Aleph Tov Kuf Tov Kuf Mem Ches, and then we have. So when we left out Mitzrayim 500 years later, so you know it's Tov. It's Beis Alofim. Sorry, Beis Alofim Tov Mem Ches. 40 years in the Midbar. We're now Beis Alofim Tov Pei Ches. So we're talking about now Beis Alofim 2,000 years and 488 years from Bria Soil. Where are we standing now? We went and we're now in Al Nevoy. So if you look at Al Nevoy, if you look at the map behind me, you can see there's Alvis Moyov. They came up, Alvis Moyov, Moshe Rabbeinu dies on Alvis Moyov on Har Nevoy. Har Nevoy is Nevoy, but is most of the Meforshim explain, as we're going to also speak about. This is very, very important. We have a few maps maybe if Olam could see. So before we go into talk about the map, let's go just a very, very quick introduction about maps and how important it is, especially when we talk about Sefer Yehoshua. So we don't want to spend many times on maps and geography because it's not so, it gets a little bit boring after a while. But we do see the first one that was busy about geography was the Kaftor Perach. The Kaftor Perach, yeah, the Bishtoria Parchi, who lived in Bet Shean. Actually, he lived in Bet Shean. It's around over here, Bet Shean, on top, next to, not far from the Yam Kinneret. Bishtoria Parchi lived about 700 years ago. He was very, very busy about this, and he went and he wrote a sefer what's called Kaftor Perach, but mainly about Mitzvahs Hatluyos, mainly speaking about Mitzvahs Hatluyos B'Oretz. And also for 7 years, he was traveling up and down Eretz Yisrael, writing down for himself everything. Bishtoria Parchi, as we know, but most of the things what he understood, he took the Arab Cheshboin. What is Cheshboin? Cheshboin. So he took a lot of things. Today we know some things are differently. And Rabbi Yosef Schwartz wrote a sefer what's called Tvois Oretz. And in Tvois Oretz he lived about 200 years ago. And he got a skomes from thing, but he writes over then that there's a lot of people who went against him because he wrote over then that some things the Bishtoria Parchi had mistaken. And because everything what he understood, it was mainly about the names of the Arabs. Later on we had Rabbi Yitzchok Goldhar from the Sefer Admas Kodesh, also who came and lived about 100 years ago, and he has a skomes of Rabbi Chaim Sonnenfeld over to Kamdiskin of Rav Kook. All the Gdoile Olam in his time, what he got a skomes in the Sefer Admas Kodesh. And there was also a lot of criticism about his Sefer, what he wrote, Kamovan, like everything else that he wrote over there. And since then we have lots of developed. But when we look at the maps, so the first map we know is Meidva, or Madaba, I think it's called in English, no? Something like that. What was found in Jordan, in the city of Meidva. It's a sifas, I said in English, sifas, like a small stones that make a picture. Mosaic, sorry. A mosaic that they found. This was about 1,400 years ago. It was done, and that's the first map what they found about Eretz Yisrael. Then we find the map, a very interesting map, what's actually very, very similar map to the Sefer Kaftor Perach is what's called the PEF. The PEF is the one that done the map is a cartograph. Cartograph is someone does maps. He was called Jacotan, and he was in the times of Napoleon. He done over there a map. Was called the PEF, stands for Palestinian Exploration Found. They had the found over there to come and to go and to find out the Gvulos Soretz. And it's very, very interesting because in these mamas you can find Kimat, also similar to what we know today, and also the Kaftor Perach. So this gives us a very good indication about between Kaftor Perach that we don't have anything Kimat in the times of the Kaftor Perach today, because since then, since Napoleon's time, we know we went into the First World War, and then Eretz Yisrael changed drastically. So to find out today what was then, it's very important also for Shemitah what we're going into, and also to understand to understand more is topography, to understand also where's a mountain, where's a valley that go up and down. So where are we standing now? We're standing Shnas Beis Alofim, 2,000 years to Brias Olam, 40 years after Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yetzias Mitzrayim was 2,448 years after Brias Olam. We're talking about 40 years later, 2,488 years after Brias Olam. We're standing over there, Zion, or about Zion Odo. Zion Odo, Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to Har Nevoy. He goes up to Har Nevoy, and Nun Boy, then he's Zoichet, the Megala Amukus in the beginning of Parshas Vayischanan tells us, then he's Zoichet the Shara Chamishim. Right? That the Chasreyu Me'at Me Elokim. Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to have all the Chamishim Shari Bina. He's not Zoichet to all the Chamishim Shari Bina, almost the 49. When he's Har Nevoy, Nun Boy, he gets the Nun Boy, and he gives it over to Yeshua, and that's why the Megala Amukus says Yeshua is called Yeshua Bin Nun. That's why he does get the Chamishim, what Yeshua Bin Nun was taught by Moshe Rabbeinu. He gets the Chamishim Shari Bina, and then for 30 days, that's the 30 Yemei Evlei Shel Moshe, they're sitting where? They're sitting over there in Har Nevoy. Then they go up the Hashbon, what is on this map is called Vadi Chasbin, and they are planning to go now into Eretz Yisrael. So we are now, if we're looking about in the maps and we're looking in the dates, we are now starting to talk about the Psukim. The Psukim is when? The Psukim, before we start the Psukim, is in the year Tov Pei Ches, Beis Alofim, Tov Pei Ches, 2,488 years from Brias Olam. They're standing now outside Eretz Yisrael, 30 days Zion Nisan, 30 days after they finish Evlei Shel Moshe. Because when there's Evlei Shel Moshe, Eina Shechina Shoiro, Elo Mitoich Simcha. And the first thing we find Sefer Yehoshua, because Yehoshua speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu. Speaks to Yeshua Bin Nun. Speaks to Yeshua Bin Nun. How could he speak to Yeshua Bin Nun if it's in the Evlei Shel Moshe in the Shloshim? Must be that this is afterwards. This is after Yemei Evlei Shel Moshe, and they speak to him. Now he's speaking to them. Okay, so let's start the Psukim inside, and then we're gonna see as a thing. So after 30 days of Evlei Shel Moshe and Alvos Moyov, they're now in Alvos Moyov. Alvos means everywhere is flat, the flat place of Moyov. Zion Nisan. Now after 40 years after they are in the Midbar, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to Yeshua Bin Nun and tells them to go to be Manchil the Oretz the Klal Yisrael. Vayehi acharei Moshe Eved Hashem. Vayomer Hashem el Yeshua Bin Nun Meshores Moshe leimoyo. So after acharei Moshe Eved Hashem, what's Eved Hashem? What is Eved Hashem? We have Oived Hashem, or we have Eved Hashem. Oived Hashem and Eved Hashem is two different things. And Eved Hashem is, if we look at Eved Hashem, the word Eved Hashem, we know. So let's start with the Goin. The Goin in Aderes Eliyahu, the Sefer of the Goin, on the Pasuk, it's born from the Goin, on the Pasuk, Vayomosh Shom, in the end of Isaiah Bocho, Vayomosh Shom Moshe, Eved Hashem, says the Goin, B'misosoi dafke now he was zoichet to be Nikra Eved Hashem. Even that in his lifetime, he was also called, but he was not called Eved Hashem, he was called Avdi Moshe. He was not called Eved Hashem. He was Eved Hashem, you have to be zoichet only lachar miseh. Because why? They come in to live with Hashem, that's a Oived Hashem. The die for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's a Oived Hashem. And as we find, the Goin says also in a different pasuk, Umuz ba'or asher ato oy l'shama. What's Umuz ba'or asher ato oy l'shama? So the Goin says of the Omru, she'oiso sim shemisosoi hoiso retzoinis. That means from his will. His will. He decided, I have a choice, right? Umuz ba'or, right? As the Chazal teaches that Rashi brings, it says over there, be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. What says be'etzem hayoyim hazeh? Where else? Yetzias Mitzrayim, Misas Moshe, and by Tevas Noach. Why? Because in Tevas Noach, the Goyim would say, we don't allow Noach to go into the Teva. Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. Mitten talk. Mitzrayim, the same thing. They will come and say, be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. Why? Because the Mitzrayim said, I'm not going to let Klal Yisrael to go out. Be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. And also in Moshe Rabbeinu, so they said, we don't want to let Moshe die. So the Welt fragt, what you don't want to let him die? You're going to hold him tight. A person has to, and the Shama Geitaroy, he said, what, you're going to hold him tight? So from the Chaim Shmuel, he said, man, that they were down so strong that Misa wouldn't come. If a person davens, he can be mevatel afilo Misa. They're going to daven so strong. That's why be'etzem hayoyim hazeh. They said the word of this Karov, he said, what's up, Shteit Umuz Bahol. They're not going to allow him to go to the mountain. There's a din, he has to die dafka in the mountain, Umuz Bahol. So the Goyen says, Umuz Bahol is a Mr. Retzoinis. That means this was Alpi Tzivu Hashem, Umuz Bahol. You have to die where? In the hole. So also in Misoso, he says the Goyen, he was Oived Hashem. That's why he was Mekayim the Mitzvah Sasei, Umuz Bahol. It's a Mitzvah Sasei for Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's why he's called Dafka now, but everywhere else we don't find it. We find Dafka where Eved Hashem. We find the Yeshua Bin Nun in the end of Sefer Yeshua, the last words of Sefer Yeshua, how Yeshua is also called. Also Eved Hashem. When he dies over there, it says over there that Vayomos Yeshua Bin Nun in Pasuk Chavtes, Kapitel Chavdaled, Mamash in the end of the Sefer. Sefer, Vayiach Advorim Oila, Vayomos Yehoshua bin Nun, Eved Hashem, Ben 110 Shana. We see Talmid Kerabbi, that also, he died also, as we say, Eved Hashem. Says the Pasuk. So let's see the Pasuk. Vayiach Mois Moshe Eved Hashem, Vayomer Hashem El Yehoshua bin Nun, Meshores Moshe Leimer. First of all, the Vayehi over here is a very interesting Vayehi. The Vayehi is a Vov. What's this Vov? So Rashi tells us, this Vov mechuber al Seder HaTorah Mesayemes, B'Tiras Moshe V'Zeu mechuber lo. Rashi says, this Vov is not Stam a Vov, this is a Vov, what is a Vov Achibur. Now, we find this Vov Kimat, I don't know, maybe someone could help me. We find this Vov Kimat in every beginning of every Sefer. Sefer Shoftim, how starts? Sefer Shmuel, also. Sefer Shoftim, Sefer Melachim. Kimat every Sefer starts with a Vov. It's also, then we're not going to say it's a Vov Achibur. It's a Vov Achibur, there's not a Vav Achibur. Over here we do say it's a Vav Achibur. So the Radak says that the Minag Haloshin is to come and to add the Vav, even when you start at the beginning. Even at the beginning, you start at the beginning of an Inyan, even though it doesn't actually has a Chibur to be foreign. Is what we find in Arabic, Fayahi, like then. Then it started, like then. And we see also this, we see also in the Ibn Ezra. The Ibn Ezra comes and says it in Bereshis. And Mamish in the beginning of Bereshis, says the Ibn Ezra, Bereshis Bo Elokim, Ve'oretz, Oyeso, Toyu Vavoyu, Ve'choyshech Abnei Seoim, says the Vavoyu, he says that the Vav over here doesn't mean, as I talk the Ibn Ezra, that the Vav over here doesn't mean the Vav like always a Vav Achibu. This means like Ki Pirushoi Kefe, Rofe, Veloshen Ishmael, Ve'komoyu, Ve'idya Leminoretz, and you bring a lot of times this type of Vav, and we find Fei Rofe, that means a F, like a Vav could mean also F, like the. When it's then, we can find it many places, as we find Kol Doidi Doidi Kine Zeba, and we find many places that the Vav is, for example, Vayolinu, and we find Maim Ushmu Toivo Meretz Melchok, Imechukoiset Elichu Venosati. It brings a lot of different examples of that this Vav not always means a Vav Achibo, it can mean also different Vav. So Leimer, what's the Leimer? Meshores Moshe. Meshores means he was the Meshamish of Moshe. Leimer. The Leimer over here, so Pashas is that's what he told him. Now, every time when it says Leimer, what means Leimer? So the Goyen over here explains Leimer, that what he told him. He told him, Avdi Moshe Meis, v'chule, that's what he told him. Moshe Avdi Meis, ve'ato kum. The other Meforshim explained that the Leimer over here, in the beginning of a Pasuk Leimer, could mean also that this HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells them. And Leimer, that this is actually what I'm telling you is, Chazal tell us a lot of times that Leimer means a tzivui, amir elachim, right? There's a Gemara over there in Brochus, that Yud Chesam and Beis, the Gemara says, Leimer, you have a tzivui to go and to tell it to other people. And that's what Rashi says many places. But we know the Radak says that what he told them, he came and commanded that this, well, I'm coming to tell you, go tell Klal Yisrael that they have a commandment to go cross the Yarden. Leimer. So what is the Leimer? Moshe Avdi Meis. And that's why now, Be'ato, Kum, Avoir es Yarden Hazeh, in front of the Yarden, and Ato, V'chol Ha'om Hazeh, El Ha'oretz Asher Anoichi Noisen, to who? Libnei Yisrael. This is the land that I'm going to give Klal Yisrael. So let's speak about, we're going to about finish, but when we come and speaking about in this second pasuk, so it says over here, Vayiach Moshe. Gemara in Tmurah, and Daf Zayin or Medalef, the Gemara says, Omar Shmuel, Shloishes, Alofim, Alochos, Mishtakru B'mei Evloi Shel Moshe. Omar lo Yeshua, Klal Yisrael come to Yeshua and tell them, no, Efsher, you tell it to us. So Omar Lei, Loi, Bashomayimi, right? What they told them. They asked them, what is it? And they says, no, I'm not in the Madriga of Moshe Rabbeinu. And what they wanted to do, they wanted to kill him. And what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells them? Okay, take them to war and they will forget. Take them to war and they will forget. And that's why now, Vayi Achi Moshe Eved Hashem, and they come, there is a Yerida Sadayos. Yeshua Binu is not exactly the Darga of Moshe. He's very different. He doesn't remember the 3,000 halachas. We can see later on, the Gemara says he brought it back. But later on, we're going to bring it back. But now Moshe Rabbeinu died. He didn't know 3,000 halachas like there was in the times of Yeshua in Moshe. Yeshua Binu forgets it, and instead of the coming to tell it in the back, he takes them out to war, and this we're going to see Mez Hashem in the next of the Psukim. Mez Hashem, we're going to continue next week the Psukim inside. I go to Shikoyas.